Okay, so hello everyone. Thanks for coming to our core application tips and tricks hosted by the center. We currently have two of us as leadership advisors here. We're going to introduce ourselves in a little bit. People might join as they come in, but this is also being recorded in case people couldn't make it and they still want this information that we're going to have. Just as like a disclaimer, we're not going to maybe go into detail about all the little steps of the application, but we are going to go over all the major materials that we're asking you to submit and some tips and maybe some things that we want you to know that we're looking for in those materials, and what would make you a successful and competitive candidate for our core positions in the center, which is the Center for Leadership and Service, and the Center for Cultural and Inclusive Excellence. So we do have about 27 open positions for the next academic year across 8 different teams. And so we're really excited to see all of your applications and get this hiring process started, and to have a cool new team next year.
Okay, so what we will be doing right through this little session here is, as Georgia mentioned, we will introduce ourselves as well as our teammates who are going to be joining in a few minutes. And then we're going to go through the materials that are required for the application. So again, not going detailed step by step, but just sort of the major pieces that you'll want to put together on your application. And then breaking those down a little bit more, we know that some of the concepts of what we're asking for in the application, maybe this is your first time applying for a job like this, and so talking about what it means for our personal statement, for making a great resume, for getting your references. So those big pieces, what will help you be successful in putting those pieces together. And then a few reminders about application deadline and those kinds of things. And then if you have additional questions that we can help answer, we'll take those. And again, the ideas for this is sort of the big pieces of the application, but if you have questions about your application specifically, after this is done, any of our leadership advisors would be happy to talk with you individually to help support your specific application. So this is sort of big picture, but if you have questions about yours, we can also help with that.
Yeah, and then if at any time maybe you do have questions that we can answer at the end, but maybe you're not comfortable with voicing them yourself, you can privately message me or Amy a question that you have, and we can answer that at the end. Okay, so our leadership programming team, this is the team that is really overseeing core recruitment. These are also 4 out of the 8 supervisors that supervise the different teams of our core student services team. So I'm all the way on the right. My name's Georgia Peary. I'm the club's leadership advisor. My preferred pronouns are she, her, hers, and I oversee the club's program here at Highline. I'll have Amy introduce herself.
And I'm Amy Bergstrom. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the Programming and Marketing Leadership Advisor. So for core services, I oversee the Marketing Outreach Design team.
And then we have Mark Pinello. He's our mentorship leadership advisor. His preferred pronouns are he, him, his, and he really oversees the peer mentorship program that is just getting started here at Highline, as well as organizes some cool service opportunities. So if that's something you're interested in helping out with. Edwina Fui is our ICC leadership advisor. So if you've ever been to the Intercultural Center, that's, if we were on campus, is on the 2nd floor of the student union. It's a really cool space, and she oversees a team of students called the ICC Peer Facilitators, which Tessa is currently one, and they host really cool peer facilitation conversations about a lot of a huge breadth of social justice topics. And so if that's something you're interested in, I would really encourage you to reach out to Edwina for more information on that.
Okay, so when you get to do the application, you will see a lot of just your basic contact information, those sorts of things. But then the biggest portion of the application is actually what we're calling your personal statement. And we use those words on purpose because what we really want for your application is for it to be personal. So the question that you'll see on the application says, given what you know about our offices, give us a personal story of how one or two concepts given below have affected you in your life and how you applied these life experiences in serving your community. And the concepts are building communities, developing leaders, social justice, and global awareness. So when you are working on your personal statements, we really encourage you to pay attention to that prompt. Go back to it, read it again, read through it, make note of the pieces of that you really want to talk about in your application. And also a tip for that is to read the mission statements for CLS and CCIE. Those are also listed on the application, so you don't even have to go search for them and find them. But reading through those mission statements and trying to understand for yourself what is the work that these two offices do, I think will really help you as you put together your personal statement and think about what your response is. And as I was saying before, our emphasis is on personal. So the idea for this is not the same as maybe a generic cover letter that you might have done for another job where it's just saying, I'm qualified for this job for these reasons. What we really want to know is why does this job matter to you? How do you connect personally with our concepts of building communities, developing leaders, social justice, and global awareness? And so, trying to think about an experience you've had in your life, something that you have been involved in that might connect with, and it could be one, it could just be about building communities. It could be about social justice. You can pick one of those concepts. You can pick multiple of them if you see places where those are interacting in your life, but then tell us about that experience and then why this connects to the mission statements, to the work that our offices do. So from your personal statement of like who you are and how you might fit with our office and how this office might be a good experience for you to be part of. And so as you're working on thinking about what your personal statement is going to be, you don't have to do this by yourself. Talk to other people if you're thinking about, okay, what's a story that you've heard me tell before? What is an experience that you've seen I've had that maybe, you don't know what the story behind that is. So maybe that's a good thing that I can be thinking about. Use your resources to brainstorm, to think about something that is really going to show you really well in your application. Am I keep going? I'm not sure.
Yeah, keep going.
I'll keep going. Great. So along with that, having somebody else look over your materials before you submit it as well. We're going to be able to tell if you just threw this together and sent it to us, and it's not going to give us the best first impression as we're getting ready to look at our potential candidates for these positions. So have someone else proofread it if it's an essay, watch your video, give you feedback and that kind of thing. And along those lines, we do give you different options for submitting your application. So you can do a written response. We say 1 page max, but I would also say 1 page expected. So it shouldn't be longer than a page, but it should be about a page. It shouldn't just be a couple of sentences or a paragraph. It should really show that you put some thought into it. If you're more comfortable using video or audio, we would accept that as well. You can record a video of yourself. You can do an audio memo of yourself. It shouldn't be any longer than 3 minutes. And then if you like to express yourself in visual artwork, you can create some sort of artwork. And then we also would like you to include a description related to the prompt about your art. So because art is very subjective, you might have a really personal connection to the art that you've created, but we might not be able to understand or see it just in our own subjective look at the art. And so we'd love for you to just give a little bit of an explainer as to how your piece of art is connected to the question of the prompt. So there's lots of different forms that you can take in order to express yourself in your personal statement, and feel free to choose the one that you feel like is going to be the best expression of yourself. So if you know that this is that you're not as great on written words, but you really feel like you can talk in video, then that's great. You can choose that one. But we are expecting the same level of thoughtfulness across the different platforms that you can submit your application in. So just because you're doing a video, it shouldn't just be, I just started and kind of free flowed, talked, and then ended it. We want you to think about the words that you're going to say on video, maybe even write yourself to little scripts, or at least some notes to help you talk about it. And then kind of going back to that previous suggestion, have somebody else watch it. And if they have any suggestions for you of like, oh, this wasn't that clear when you were saying that, then they're able to give you some feedback. So choose the medium that works for you, but also put time and thought into whichever medium you choose.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to ask about the written response. Does it mean that one page max is like single space or double?
That's a great question. I think we typically say double space, right, Georgia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question. All right, so moving on to some resume tips. I also want to say a disclaimer, very similar to what Amy said before. Like, we recognize that this might be some of you all's first time you're applying for a job. So this might also be the first time you're even putting your past experiences down in what we would call a resume. And so our tips for that is to always choose experiences to highlight that relate to the job you're applying for. And so a tip that would be really good is to go through all of the job descriptions that we have on our website for all of the open positions. And you are also able to apply for multiple of our positions, but say if you're interested in maybe 3 out of the 8, really looking at those job descriptions and seeing what's the main roles and responsibilities of that job. So for example, if the job you're applying for focuses on event planning, which is a big part of our global student ambassadors, be sure to put any like event experience you have. And really, when I say event experience, it could be when you volunteered that one time, say even at Highline, if you volunteered to help out with like winter gala, winter dance. If you've been to any of like the ICC peer facilitations. So really any related experience you have, we want to see that just on paper, because we don't know all of you, we don't know all of your experiences. And so we at least want to see as much detail as possible. And so definitely include any related volunteer experience. When it comes to a resume, we're not looking for paid professional experience. Again, we understand your students, you might be starting off in your professional identity. And so we just want to see any related experience that you've had so far. Highline also has some great resources that are available to you as students. So the CASE website, and if you go to that link, you'll be taken to their website. And then they also have, and I linked it to this presentation, which we can send to you all after, is how to build a winning resume. This is a pretty extensive guide and very much geared towards students who are about to graduate and they're starting maybe their professional careers. But if you do go through it, there are some really good tips on how to like just start your resume and what are some things that should be on your resume. I do also link the CASE website because they are available for one-on-one meetings and consultations. And so if you have specific questions about getting started on a resume, is this a relevant experience to this job? There's professional staff at CASE that are really, really helpful. The cool thing about them is they also really understand our student staff positions. And we're also very close as staff, so they understand what our office is really all about and what we're looking for in our student staff. I also would really recommend that if you're using Microsoft Word or like Google Docs, they have some basic resume templates. And so I feel like if you have your list of related experience that you want to highlight, but maybe what's holding you up or what you're maybe confused about is the format that a resume has to be in. And these templates are they're really basic, and they're great for just writing your first resume. And it's a great just first step to just get everything on the paper. And then as you get more comfortable with writing resumes, you can work with like your mentors to make it more robust. But I personally, as a supervisor, I'm okay if I see, you know, a basic Microsoft template. It's what I also did as an undergrad, and it's just the first good step. And then just like your personal statement, have someone review it before submitting. Maybe that is you making an appointment with Case to have them look over it. Maybe it's a family member or a friend that you know has like written a resume before. As long as another set of eyes has at least scanned over it, I think that's a really good idea for you to do. Again, we can tell when maybe you've like scrambled it together and submitted it, and we do really want to see some intentional thought and effort behind it. And again, we understand that this may be the first time you're submitting a resume, so know that we value and see all of your experiences that you share with us as valid, and we're going to take a holistic approach when looking at all of your materials.
Okay, so the next portion that we have on our application is we do ask you to include 2 references. And just for you to know, you will submit the name and contact information for your references, and then we will actually be the ones to contact them, and there's a form that they'll be filling out. So for your stage, your part is actually finding those references. But that can be really a big sort of question mark for people, is who do I ask to be my references? And really specifically, we do want these to be people who can talk about you as a professional, but like, what if you haven't had professional experience, right? We've just been talking about the last 2 sections as well. So there's a lot of different people who could be your references. So obviously, if you've had work experience, professional paid work experience before, you can ask a former employer or supervisor. That is a very typical reference that people use for job applications. If you don't have that experience before, that's totally fine. Some other options is you could ask a former or current faculty member or instructor. So somebody that you have had a class with, that you've enjoyed their class, that they would know who you are. They would be able to speak about some of your aspects as a student that would translate really well into being an employee. And so about your organization or your communication or some of those kinds of things where you know, okay, this person knows that I do good work. And then another option for that would be a mentor who could talk about you professionally. So maybe you have other community members, other Highline staff members, staff from other schools that you've been to, organizations that you're involved with out in the community. Those are all really great people that you could talk to, as long as they're able to tell us a little bit about you as a worker, or as how they would see you as a worker. So even if they didn't directly supervise you in any way, if they could talk to us about how they might be able to picture you in that work environment, that's really helpful. So not necessarily someone who's going to tell us what a great person you are, although we believe that you're a great person also, but really someone who's going to be able to tell us a little bit about the skills that you have, or the potential that they see in you for those skills. And really, this person should not be a fellow student. So unless there's like a very, very slim exception to that, I would say if you worked in an environment where there was a supervisor student, so maybe you were on a team and there was a lead or something like that, that person might be able to be a reference for you. But otherwise, this isn't the time to be your references. It should really be someone who knows you in a context that we would consider to be a professional context. So once you've identified that people that you're going to ask to be your references, you maybe are not quite sure how to actually ask them to do that. So the first thing that we recommend is really to let them know as soon as possible. You want them to have advanced warning so that they can think a little bit about what they might say about you, so that they can say the best thing possible. I've served as references for people before, and I always want to know when I might expect to hear from somebody who's going to be looking for a reference, so that I can think about the best things I can say about that person, so I don't randomly get a phone call and have to think because I work with lots of people, right? So I might know you and think you would be a great one, but like if I was put on the spot, it might think of those great qualities to talk about you. And so giving them a little bit of time is really helpful in that. Be really clear on why you chose them. So what is it about that person that you think that they would be able to talk specifically about your qualities? So, I think we have an example on the next slide that we can show, but here's the reason why I think that you know me and would be able to speak about the qualities that I bring to this position. And then related to that, letting them know the positions that you're applying for. And it can also be really helpful to send them the job description for those positions. Oftentimes when I've been a reference for somebody, I look at the job description so I can see, oh, they really want someone who's a strong communicator. Okay, when they ask for that reference, I can really talk about this person's communication skills. Or, oh, they're looking for somebody who's an event planner. I could talk about how I think this experience with them as a volunteer would help them to be a good event planner, whatever it is. And so giving them that little bit of extra information will help them be a really good reference for you.
Can I have a question?
Yes, go ahead, Min.
So like I have like my reference person, like they live in a different country. I'm international student. Is it okay if I contact them with their email? Like, how do you guys contact?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. I'll just answer for our jobs specifically, and then I'll also just give you a little advice for other jobs. So for this job, we're going to be contacting your references via email. So it is definitely fine for you to send us someone who lives elsewhere. They will need to be responding in English, just because the people who will be reviewing are primary languages are English. So just kind of keeping that in mind for anyone that you might be asking for a reference. In terms of other jobs that you might apply for one day, I think it can be okay to have an international reference as long as you've worked with them on how they're going to communicate with your potential employer. But it's really challenging, particularly if the potential employer does a phone call check. They're probably not going to make an international phone call to talk to your reference. And there's time zone differences. So I have had that issue before where I was contacting somebody. It was even via email, but I was trying to make a decision really quickly, and so I had emailed the reference, asked them a bunch of questions, but then it took them a couple of days to get back to me, and so it makes it a little bit more challenging. And so I think for a position like this right now, an international reference is great, but it might be a good idea to work on cultivating some local references for future job applications.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this is an example of how you can ask your reference to be a reference. So, dear name of person that you're asking, and this it's important that you address them. This is sort of general email etiquette 101 as well. Your email should always include, at least for when you're starting a formal correspondence like this, a greeting of some kind and a closing of some kind, and then whatever way that you have addressed this person before. So if this is somebody you're really close to, it might be their first name, but if it's a professor or someone you have a different kind of relationship with, you might put, dear Dr. So-and-so, or whatever else would work best for that. I am interested in applying to be a student leader in the center, CLS and CCIE at Highline. So right from there, you're telling them what it is that you are applying for, giving them a little bit of information. As part of the application process, I need to submit 2 professional references. I feel that you are a person who is able to speak about my professional identity. Would you be willing and able to be a professional reference for me? I think something that's really important here also is you are asking a favor from your reference. This is true whenever you ask for references for the rest of your life. So really being understanding of the fact that you are asking for them to share their time and resources with you. This isn't a demand of any kind that you're saying, I need you to do this, but I'm asking for your help in this situation. And so really phrasing it in such a way where you're asking for their help. The specific positions I am applying for are, so letting them know specifically what you're applying for, and I have attached the job descriptions to the email. You could also send them a link to our website that has all the job descriptions on it if there's a bunch of them that you're sending, for example. If you're willing to be a professional reference for me, I will need your email and phone number. Once my application is submitted, a professional staff member from the center will be in touch about filling out an assessment form. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks, and your name. And so giving them that next step to say, okay, if you're going to confirm that you're able to do this, this is what I need from you. You might have their email and phone number already, and so just saying, if it's okay with you, I'll be sharing your name and email address. So please confirm that I have your permission to share that information. So some way where they need to send you an affirmative response and not just putting their information on the application without already hearing back from them that they're going to be fine with you using them as a reference.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so just some reminders. The applications close May 6th. I believe it's a Wednesday at 5 p.m. And so we won't be accepting any applications after that. So you still have a few more weeks, especially if you're still in the process of going to the next bullet point of like contacting your references, especially to echo what Amy said of it's our expectation that you're reaching out to these people first to get their permission to share their information before you put it into the application. This means you also still have time to maybe make an appointment with CASE or the Writing Center for any specific questions you have on writing a personal statement or resume, and any details about that. LPT, who I see some people are showing up, is here to answer any of your questions. And then actually I linked a amazing video that Amy made that actually does like walk through the whole application. And so please check out that page for a detailed video on the application. And before we go to questions, maybe Gio can just say hi and introduce himself.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is still morning. This is Gio, he, him, his pronouns, and I am the mentorship programs leadership advisor in the Center for Cultural and Inclusive Excellence, but also part of LPT, which is, as you know, the leadership programming team. Hello. I see Tessa and Min.
Yes.
Well, I see their name.
Cool. Thanks, Gio. Okay, so actually, our last thing was that if you all have any specific questions, if you don't want to say them out loud, that's totally fine. You can put them in the chat box. But we're here really for the next 30 minutes if you need it, to answer any questions.
Edwina also just popped in. Edwina, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, Tessa and Min. My name is Edwina. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Intercultural Center Leadership Advisor, and I'm super excited that both of you are interested in applying.
Yes. Can we get like, we just got here, obviously. Can I see like Tessa, what are you applying for or interested? Min, what position are you interested in applying for?
Gio, before we do that, we are recording this right now. So I was just thinking we might want to either finish recording or maybe take other questions, and then anything personal we can like leave off the recording.
Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha. Good point. I just got excited. It was like, ooh.
Yeah, no, that's good. So Tessa, Min, if you have any questions that might be helpful for anyone who would watch this afterwards, feel free to ask them, and then otherwise we'll end the recording, but we'll keep answering questions.
Totally.
So
I had a question in terms of the references. If there's someone that doesn't primarily use email, would it still be okay to like specify, if you call them, it would be better? Or is it like an actual form that's online that the reference will need to fill out?
We do have form that we are asking them to fill out, but I think we could go through the form with them on a phone call. So if they don't use email, if they prefer phone, I think that email is like a required field in the application itself, but you could put a note that says, please call this reference, they prefer phone.
Okay, yeah, because they do have an email. It's just more convenient to call.
Okay, great.
Good question. Min, did you have a question that maybe would be good for other people viewing this video to hear?
So I just want to ask about the resume. So is it mandatory that it has to be one page only? Because I know like there's some kind of thing like it may be just a little bit more than just one page.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think you'll find that for this position, again, going back to we understand that this might be the first time you're submitting a resume. We're not really going to, and maybe I'll just speak for myself as a supervisor, I'm not really going to judge harshly if it's like going on to a second page. I think as long as what you put on your resume are like relevant experiences that are things that you really want to share, then I'm not really looking for specific length. I think it's a good practice to try and keep it to a page. And I think as you go along in like your professional career, whatever that may be, having it not longer than 2 pages. But as you get to that step, that's a great time where case can come in, because you'll find that for different industries, there's like different preferences.
Mhm.
So if you go into like the business sector, there's a specific page length that people in that sector like. I do not know what that is. But for like our field, which is like student affairs, they like at least 2 pages and they like it stapled. These are all rules that like case can really help you learn. But you'll find that in our office, we're really we sometimes maybe see that as like a barrier to students, especially as you're just starting off learning how to like make a resume. And so if you're going over onto a second page, that's okay, as long as you're sharing with us some valuable experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
And other leadership advisors, please feel free to chime in on what you feel about that question.
So about I have one more question about the resume. So I had some previous experience as a volunteers in like organizations non non-government organizations, but
Yeah.
it's not really related to the position I want to apply in the COS right now. So is it okay if I just put it in the resume?
I would say totally put those in. I think especially if you have experience at like at an NGO, and thinking about all of our positions really do. There is going to be at least some focus on like administrative tasks and like organizational skills and written and like verbal communication. And so if those are things that you get, if those are skills that you gained in that volunteer position, that's something that we would be able to see on your resume. And so I think even if you think it's maybe not related at all, a good tip to think about is what are the skills and things that I learned in that volunteer position? And maybe those are things that would be needed in this position I'm applying for. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool.
I think also any work, paid, volunteer, anything like that you've had, in addition to like hard skills that you learn in those places, you're also learning what it means to be in a workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a lot of value in even just seeing the different places that you've been involved, because it helps to see, oh, you know, that you've maybe learned just like working with other people and some of those things that will be really valuable in any work environment that you are in, whether it's our office or another one.
Totally.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions that would be good for everyone?
All right. Well, I am going to stop recording